administration after administration. We need to, as long as we keep allowing them to spread misinformation like that, it just gets worse and worse. And at this point, it's like everybody believes it just because, the old big lie principle. If you repeat a lie over and over again, eventually it becomes the truth. And that's what they've done with this climate stuff.
Yeah, that's Woodrow Wilson's propaganda. They asked Goebbels, the Nazi, where did you get that strategy from? He said Woodrow Wilson. He said Woodrow Wilson, They said, where'd you learn propaganda? Woodrow Wilson. Where'd you learn how to treat the Jews? Well, we followed America's policies on the Negro. Oh, okay.
Sounds about right.
Hey, man, I'm just repeating what Goebbels said and what the historians have said. But it's like climate change, they're teaching these kids in school now, your parents are irresponsible. They don't care about your future. They have cars that burn gasoline. They have cars that exist on fossil fuel. So they want you to die. There'll be nothing left for you when you get their age.
Yeah, it's just such complete idiocy. If you look at the actual deaths from natural disasters around the world, they're way down from 100 years ago. And last year, there was only something like 12,000 people killed in the entire planet from natural disasters, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the deaths around the world. So the propaganda goes to exact opposite of what's going on. People are living longer. They're living better. Crop yields are improving. There's much less poverty. There's much less disease. There's much less illiteracy. Things have just gotten much better all around the world. And all that we hear from Democrats and the press is the exact opposite. It's all falling apart. We're all going to die.
We're all going to die tomorrow. Tomorrow, the dinosaurs are coming back. The dinosaurs are coming back. Tony, did you know that?
Yeah, right. Well, what's really interesting about, about the moderator going on last night about more hurricanes and hotter fires and worse fires. First of all, wood burns at the same temperature. It's always burning. People who claim that fires are getting hotter, I don't know how more anti-science you can get. Wood burns at a specific temperature, and it always has burned at that temperature, and it always will burn at that temperature. But on this date in 1871, Charles, was the worst forest fire in U.S. history.
Okay.
Chicago burned to the ground, and that was just one of the worst fires. Up in Wisconsin, in Peshtigo, Wisconsin, there was a massive forest fire, burned all around Green Bay, killed more than 1,000 people in the town of Peshtigo, and there were huge fires that day all around Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, covered a huge region. And that was after a week of massive fires all across Minnesota, Wisconsin. There were also huge fires burning in the Rocky Mountains from the end of August into October. Much of Canada was burning up that time. There was just incredible fires burning all over the United States and Canada.
Okay.
And thousands of people died in those fires. And those were the worst fires in U.S. history. So the timing of the comments yesterday were pretty obscene. And then if we go back to 1825, on the date of the debate, October 7th, was the worst fire, the largest fire in Canada's history. 1/5 of New Brunswick burned up overnight in the Miramichi fire. And on that same day was Maine's largest fire. To this date, the Maine's never had a larger fire than the one they had on October 7th, 1825.
Okay.
If you look at the total burn acreage from October 7th, 1825, in New Brunswick and Maine, it was what burned overnight was more acreage than is burned in California for this entire year. So you get all these people in the press saying these are the worst fires ever. It's nonsense. It's it's simply not true.
It's only
they just make these statistics up.
Well, Tony,
yeah.
it's only the worst fire that they know of because they haven't done any history. They just look at it and go, "Oh my God, I've never seen anything like this in my life." Has nothing to do with the truth. It's all about them and their life. It's like when you talk to people and they start talking about their experience, and when you talk about anything, and I go, "Oh, we're having an intellectual conversation here. This is not about you. This is about the bigger picture." And they give you that look like, what's bigger than me? What's bigger than what I think? What's bigger than what I know? I mean, why are people so stupid today? I have a question, and I know this is kind of rhetorical, but why are people so stupid today? They don't argue well. They don't think well. They go, well, because, and I always say this, folks, just because you thought it doesn't mean that it's true. Just because you thought it doesn't mean it happens that way. I talk to people all the time who say to me, well, I'm not going to do this because of X. And I said, well, okay, but you have to understand X is the way it gets done. Just because you think the way that you do, doesn't mean it's going to get done that way, because it's not.
Yeah, well, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, he's completely lost his mind this year, and he's become insane as far as I can tell. But he used to be a fairly smart guy, and he was a newspaper writer. And in 2013, he wrote this, which I think might answer your question. He said, "As a species, we human beings have become so blind with conceit and self-love that we genuinely believe that the fate of the planet is in our hands. But the reality is that everything, or almost everything, depends on the behavior and caprice of the sun." And so, I thought that was a pretty good explanation for what's wrong with people's thinking. It makes them feel really powerful, that they control the climate or they control viruses or whatever, And so, yeah, I think it's an ego trip for most people.
Well,
if I drive a car, there'll be a hurricane in Florida or something. But it's a pretty big ego trip.
But when I hear young children say to their parents, "You don't care about my future because you're driving a car that doesn't have a battery in it. Why can't we?" I mean, what does this kid know about driving? First of all, it's like when I listen to kids that are in the 5th grade talking about they're gay. How do you know what sex is? I mean, help me out with this. You're 10 years old and you're talking about sex. Okay, right.
So I'll tell you, Charles. So I've got a sign up in my front yard here in Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is the most conservative Republican state in the country. And it's a sign which I developed myself. It just lays out some conservative principles. Nothing that would be considered racist or sexist or anything like that. In fact, it's very inclusive. But I look out the window the other day, and there's some kid, 12-year-old kid, walking home from school. He's kicking my sign, and then he turns around and flips off my house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he's obviously came from some liberal family, and his parents must have seen the sign walking by and told him that it was really evil. That's just the way it is these days. Kids are they're indoctrinated at school, they're indoctrinated at home with all this liberal garbage, and it makes them angry and nasty.
Yeah, but don't they understand?
Not pleasant.
The unpleasantness is this. They may run into a guy like me who really doesn't care what they think or how they feel. I remember I was in a store. I was in the grocery store, and I was at the book counter, and I was talking to the guy who was a butcher. He's putting a meat thing together for me. And I said something, I guess, we were talking about some topic, and I can't remember the topic exactly right now. But this guy came up to me who was obviously gay, And he said, you make me uncomfortable about what you said made me feel very comfortable. And I looked him dead in the eye and said, like I really give an F. I'm not interested in how you feel. Let me be clear. I said, let me be clear. I am not interested in how you feel or that you feel offended. Not even the least bit.
Yeah.
So I don't
Well,
believe.
George Orwell.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say George Orwell said, if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear.
Yeah, well, this guy just felt he felt the audacity to confront me. And see, I'm a real guy. I'm a real dude. I mean, and when I see a little wimpy kind of guy who confronts me, it angers me that this guy thinks in the first place that he can confront me without any consequences. But that's the kind of society we've allowed these weak liberals and these women to put on us. I mean, when you have a robust, energetic people, it's like Donald Trump. Donald Trump is 72, 73 years old, something like that.
74.
74. Okay. Yeah. 74 years old. And he's robust. He's in your face. He's combative. He's energetic. He gets things done. Joe Biden, on the other hand, looks like an old frail man. He never has gotten anything done. In 47 years in the Senate, he can't point to any accomplishments. Isn't that amazing? And he lies. I saved the automotive industry. He's a damn lie. They destroyed the automobile industry in Detroit. They put dealers out of business who'd been in business for 100 years. They took their businesses away because they said, you have too much privilege. You have too much. You've made enough money. Give someone else a chance. So they just put these old dealerships, just took their dealerships away. Just took them. GM just took them. Okay. The guy, Rick Wagner, who was the president and CEO of GM, he went to the Obama administration. He said, hey, I need $20 billion. I need to borrow $20 billion and I'll have GM profitable by the second quarter of next year. Well, and he was going to pay the money and he said, I'll repay the loan. Barack Obama says, well, we'll give you the money, but we're going to fire you. He put a 35-year-old boy in charge of General Motors who never managed a 7-Eleven. The other thing he did was he put what did he do? He put a boy in charge of GM 7-Eleven. He managed a 7-Eleven like himself, and then they gave GM $20 billion out of our treasury, just like he did with Solyndra. How many? Did he give Solyndra almost $1 billion, something like $800 million that he gave Solyndra? See, that's what Joe Biden wants to do. See, this is the point that really pisses me off about Trump and Pence. Barack Obama and Mike and what's his name? Barack Obama and Biden said they had shovel-ready jobs. Yeah, said they had shovel-ready jobs. And how much money did we give them for these shovel-ready jobs? Was it 800 million or billion? It was something like shovel-ready jobs. I can't remember what that number was right now because that was a few years ago. But I'm going to put in here shovel-ready jobs. And Barack, when he was questioned about it, said, well, they weren't so shovel-ready. Well, what happened to the money, you SOB? Shovel-ready jobs. So let me put in here shovel-ready jobs. Go ahead.
Yeah, every single one of the green energy companies which Obama promoted failed. There was something like 30 of them, and it was a huge amount of money. And it just looked to me like it was just payback for a campaign contributor. So they just set up a fake green energy company, and he'd give them money, and then they'd fold and take the money and run. That's basically what happened.
Yeah. Take the money and run. Huh? This sounds like a song. But
pretty much.
Hey, but
the Obama song.
Yeah, kind of dating myself, huh? They said Joe Biden repeats the same claim about shovel-ready jobs in their stimulus. And in this particular article, they said the Obama provided shovel-ready jobs in the 2009 stimulus that Joe Biden managed. Even factcheck.org says that that's false.
Yeah. Well, yeah, everything's completely upside down.
This is what it was. Hey, listen, this is what it was. This is
Opposite.
what it was. Joe Biden says, I'm the guy, as you may remember, who managed the Recovery Act of $800+ billion. And I always focused on shovel ready jobs. This is factcheck.org that's saying this, right? And they're saying that
Yes.
Biden failed to mention that the Obama Biden effort was fund shovel ready jobs was an abysmal failure. So why does he keep touting that and trying to get away with it?
Because he knows that the press will carry his water no matter how ridiculous his statements are. And same thing with Kamala Harris.
You know what? I remember
last night she was directly contradicting what her and Biden have been saying about banning fracking. A year ago in October, Kamala Harris promised to prosecute oil companies over climate change, right? And then last night she's there shaking her head. No, I didn't say that. I didn't see that. Well, it's right there in the newspaper.
Well,
and of course the press, the moderator won't call them out on it.
And AOC,
they just let them get away with their life.
Oh, you mean like Candy did Romney that time? She called George Romney out to the But
Candy get the transcript. That was a great moment.
Yeah. But I remember something you said that always stuck with me, and it just tickled me to death because it's so true. I remember this climate change alarmist was on television saying Charleston, South Carolina is going to flood because the ocean's waters are rising to historic levels. And you said it's always flooded. If you look back to the 1600s, it's flooded. If you look it's because it's below sea level. I'm going, who would know that? Who would you? We know
most of the predictions which these climate alarmists make are like predicting that the sun's going to come up tomorrow. There's always been hurricanes. There's always been fires. There's always been floods. There's always been tornadoes. So when they make predictions that these things are going to happen, of course they're going to happen. They've always happened. Then they go and try to make claims that this year's hurricanes are unprecedented or this year's fires are unprecedented. It's just complete garbage just because they don't know anything about history.
Well, the
stuff happened all the time.
Tony, what about the guy? What about the guy? And I remember this like it was yesterday. This guy predicted, and I can't remember his name right now, but he's a real, climate alarmist. He's out there on TV all the time. He's written books about this stuff. He said that we were going to be rowing to the Washington Monument by 2000, by the year 2000. We'd have to take boats and row out to the Washington Monument.
The Washington Monument's up on a hill. How is that supposed to happen?
Well, when this came out,
doesn't make any sense.
Well, when this came out, when this guy was saying this stuff, I was in and out of Washington all the time. I had a little apartment there. And so I'd get up in the morning and I'd go out and I'd run. This is when I was younger. I'd go out and I'd run up to the Washington Monument because, no one's up there and it's beautiful and the flags are waving and there's always a little breeze on that hill. And and it's the Washington Monument, man. And you can sit there and you can look back at the Capitol and there's the White House off to the left, and the Smithsonian and all that stuff off to the right. And you're looking at the Potomac and you gaze over and there's the Arlington Cemetery. So it's a great place to be in the morning, especially when there's no one out. And man, I started thinking about what this guy said about rowing to the Washington Monument. I'm going, Jesus Christ, this is going to be cataclysmic, Well,
actually, so on March 21st, 1936, there was a huge flood all over the eastern United States. My grandfather had to be rescued. My grandfather was at a meeting in downtown Pittsburgh, and they had to bring boats in to get him out of there. And there was a huge flood in Washington, D.C., as one of many cities which flooded. They had to sandbag the White House. And this has happened, but that was a long time ago.
But this guy was very clear that the waters were going to just rise so high that we would be rowing to the Washington Monument.
Yeah, they just make this stuff up. They come up with these ridiculous predictions which have no chance of becoming true. And the more ridiculous they are, the more the press carries water for them. It's this fear porn thing. I've got a huge list of old newspaper articles of ridiculous predictions, which climate alarmists have been making forever. In 1922 or 23, it was predicted that Glacier National Park would be ice-free in 25 years. And then later they had one in the 1930s where they predicted it would be ice-free by 1960. And then later it was going to be ice-free by the year 2001. And then it was going to be ice-free by this year, 2020.
Right.
Now they're predicting 2040. They're almost 100 years out from their original ice-free Glacier National Park prediction. They just make these predictions and they don't come true and nobody remembers it. And they just push it out another 20 years.
Yeah. One of my watchers out there on Facebook, on YouTube, said that Solyndra got $535 million. Oh God.
Yeah, they just folded. They pocketed the money and ran. It was a great scam they had going there.
Well, I always say that every citizen should be an equity owner in Tesla, because that was our money that started Tesla.
Yeah.
How about that?
Exactly.
Such a novel idea, huh?
And speaking of Tesla, a Tesla battery weighs 1,200 pounds. Right? And Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, just said that every car in California is going to have to be electric in 10 years or 15 years or whatever. So you're going to have 50 million cars with 1,200-pound batteries. And they require lots of rare earth minerals like cobalt, which comes from child slavery mines in the Congo.
Right.
And and it's going to be a huge toxic waste problem too.
Right.
How do you dispose of these millions and millions of pounds of these toxic batteries?
Tony, let me propose this, Tony. How do you charge the damn batteries if you don't have an energy source?
Exactly. Like California doesn't have enough electricity now. They kept shutting down the electricity.
Hey, Tony, we have a caller from California. They may want to ask you something. Here we go.
Okay.
Hey, caller, how you doing?
Okay.
Caller. Hello. Caller. I guess they're just out their way. They hung up. Okay, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, okay, so they closed down the San Onofre nuclear plant down by San Diego.
They closed that down. Why?
In 2012.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, they shut that down. Probably just anti-nuclear sentiment. They said that it was leaking or something. I don't think that was true. But for whatever reason, they closed down, and they're closing down all their coal-fired power plants. So now they don't have enough electricity, right?
Mm-hmm.
To run the city now. And Gavin Newsom wants to make it so that they're going to shut down all their coal-fired power plants, all their fossil fuel-powered plants. Plus, they're going to put this huge demand on the grid to power up all these electric cars. And it takes, even with a fast charger, it takes 45 minutes to charge up these cars. Imagine you're driving up from LA up to San Francisco. It's 500 miles. You're going to have to stop and charge the car a couple times. Each time it takes 45 minutes. And there's 2,000 people in line in front of you who are also trying to charge up your car. People will become immobile. They won't be able to travel outside of the range of how far their car can charge because there won't be enough electricity, there won't be enough infrastructure, and the charge time takes way too long. The reason that Teslas work now is because so few people have them. they've got these superchargers, in various places around the country, and those work okay because right now there's hardly anybody trying to use them. So you
Mhm.
can drive, and charge up your car, go into the coffee shop, have lunch,
Right.
come back in 45 minutes. The car's charged. What happens when it goes from there's 10 Teslas on the highway to there's 10 million Teslas on the highway? Then there's no way to get to it. And the amount of current you need to charge these cars is massive. You're not going to get that from solar cells. And we don't have the infrastructure to provide. I'm an electrical engineer. But this whole concept of what Gavin Newsom's doing, he's just committing suicide for the state with this mandate. And they think that this is going to stop hurricanes and
Well, Gavin Newsom
and fires. They're insane.
Yeah.
There's no reason to believe that what they're doing will improve the climate in California. It's just insanity what they're up to.
But Gavin Newsom is a political animal. He's trying to position himself to run for president in 2024. That's what, 2024. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to position himself to run for president. Pretty boy. I'm good. Look, I'm the next John Kennedy. The guy is a loser. And right now we're looking at a situation but this is the other thing about California. California is getting exactly what they deserve. These people go out and vote for good-looking people and popular people, and they don't pay any attention to the policies of these people. They pay no attention to the substance of these people. Gavin Newsom is a guy who was the mayor of San Francisco, ruined that city. You can't walk downtown without stepping over human feces. I refuse to go to San Francisco. I will not go into the city limits of San Francisco. Not going to happen. I used to love to go to San Francisco and tell you how much I love San Francisco in the Bay Area. Every year for about 10 years, I would fly at the day after Christmas. If I was in California, I would fly up to the Bay Area and go to a sale, a men's suit sale that Nordstrom's had right there on Market Street, and get me a hotel room right next door, and at the Four Seasons, and just do my little shopping, and it was great. I had my little restaurants that I would go to, and but today that same area, I was down there about 3 years ago. And man, I almost had to beat a guy, senselessly, because this guy attacked me because I wouldn't pay any attention to him trying to touch me. I said, "Don't touch me! Don't touch me!" This guy is filthy. Just his hands are just grubbily filthy. He's trying to touch me. Man, I would beat the crap out of this dude. You hear me? And and the thing is, I'm serious. And the thing is, they know that they're disgustingly filthy. And I don't care about them being disgustingly filthy. Just don't bother me. I could care less about them. I don't know why people think that somehow, and this is the thing about all of this social behavior, this social discourse, this social acting out, and this social activity. When all this stuff started, Tony? All this stuff started with the civil rights movement and black people saying, "Hey, I want to be treated like an American citizen. I don't want anything special. I want good schools. I want access to good jobs. I want to pursue the American dream." Then you had, next you had the women come in. "Oh, we don't want to wear bras. I want to be free. I want to be like a man." So recently, I read a couple articles, man, about chivalry is dead, and these women are pining, saying, the American male is finally getting the picture that chivalry is dead. We are in trouble, because I believe in treating women like a great movie, Tony, and it wasn't Climate Hustle 2, which I heard was a great success, but it was last Sunday. It was called RBG, and I really hadn't gone to see that movie. I had gone to see Infidel, But the projector, what are the chances of a digital projector going down, right? That had been fixed the day before.
Yeah.
So that happened. So they came in, they gave us a couple of free passes, and they said, well, you can go see another movie too. So I did that. I went to see a movie, and it was great. I went to see RBG, and what I gathered from RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is that she created latchkey kids. She created situations that were in direct conflict with men, and they were, and her policies and her attitudes directly affected men, and men being men. Because you ever notice that women always want to integrate all male clubs, but they don't want males to integrate all women's clubs. Here in Chicago, we still have, like, Monday is Women's Day at the car wash, and I said, hey, I want the women's rate, or I'm going to protest. And they always give me the woman's rate, right, which is about $5 off the car wash price. But still, I mean, they still try to hold these two things up, and they're not working. They don't work out for our society, for one. But there are things I think that should have been changed for women, no question. I remember when my mother couldn't get credit on her own, she had to use my brother's name, who was named after my father. So, hey, those things needed to change, no question. But what we did, though, was, or what she did, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is she created, this whole thing of latchkey kids not coming home to a mom. And I remember I came home to my mother when I was in elementary school, and it really meant a lot, man, to be able to come home and see your mama, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at the at the inauguration in 2017, and then some journalists called me up and asked me to go report on the Women's March on Washington the next day.
Okay.
Right. So I went out there. There's like 300,000 crazy people out there.
Right.
And I was wearing my "Make America Great Again" hat.
You're a
right?
brave guy. You're a brave guy.
Oh my God. The people were. The number of times I was verbally assaulted by that crowd, and I'm sure I would have been physically assaulted too, except that there was like police and military everywhere around there. But it was insane. These people were completely nuts. Their pink pussy hats on, and they're cussing at me and screaming at me and yelling obscenities at me. And Madonna was out there talking about blowing up the White House. It's like, so these are women. These people are. It's just the largest crowd of lunatics I'd ever seen in my life.
Well, they have no class.
Yeah.
But they want to be treated like they have some class, and we should respect them when they don't respect themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when I'm leaving Washington, I'm flying out of Reagan Airport, sitting there at the terminal waiting to go, and there's a bunch of them there, and they're just like screaming at their top of their lungs, "We hate Trump! Bring down Trump! We want Hillary!" Stuff like that. It's like,
well, guess what?
No manners, no common decency.
Guess what?
No respect for other people's opinions. All that matters is that they air out their crap.
Yeah, and guess what? They lost.
Yeah.
So
well,
go ahead.
They've never admitted that.
Well, I'm looking at television today, and whether it's Fox, MSNBC, CNN, nobody's carrying the fact that Brennan was outed for sharing with the Obama-Biden administration that Hillary Clinton made up the Russian scandal to deflect from her 35,000 personal emails. Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Morning Joe hasn't talked about it. Nobody's talking about it. It doesn't fit there, but they think the American people are stupid.
Yeah, and they're also not talking about the fact that Kamala Harris was lying about fracking, what her and Biden have said about fracking. That was really blatant, and Pence called her out, and the press still won't talk about it.
No, no. But see, and so some of my friends say, okay, Pence was too mild. And I said, well, if he'd been any more bolder, they would have called him a racist. Somebody my guys out here, they said, had no mommy at home, only a string around my neck with a key. Latchkey kids. See, that's what I'm talking about. Latchkey kids, right? And then Pete Ortez, that was my man from Baltimore. Pete Ortez says, why is it that you turned out all right instead of getting out of school and hanging out in the street? Because my mama was home and school got out at 2:40 and I better been home by 3:00. Okay. So let's see. Somebody else says, this is Tom from Baltimore. At Pete Ortez, you make a good point. Kids need parental supervision. I did dangerous things with no supervision. Pedro's chiming in from Miami. Okay, that's Pete. Okay, got it. Pete Ortez, got Pedro. So, man, these are my boys. I mean, love these guys. But they're out there on YouTube hanging out, talking to each other and throwing me in every now and then, throwing me a bone. But Tony, when we talk about this whole green economy, when you look back at the $800 billion that somehow went missing in the Obama administration, the shovel-ready jobs, what the hell? I mean, are we just going to repeat history again? Are we just going to let Biden and Harris come in and take all this money and send all these? What shovel-ready jobs, what good jobs are coming from green energy? There are no good jobs, dude.
Yeah. And a lot of the reason that the economy was doing really well for many years was improving for many years was because we had fracking, and the price of energy came way down, and the United States became the world's leading oil producer. And we became less, for decades, the Democrats were screaming, we've got to get rid of our dependency on Middle Eastern oil because that's why we're having all these wars, right? Because of Middle Eastern oil. So finally, they go off and do that. They get all this fracking technology, and America becomes the world's leader in oil, and we're no longer dependent on the Middle East. And what do Democrats do? They say, we want to shut it down. It's like,
because
they're insane.
They're not. No, Tony, they're not insane. It's just like climate hustle. Follow the money.
Yeah.
Follow the money. And when you follow the money, it all makes sense.
Well, that's certainly true for the people in power, but for the Democrat people who are voting for him, these same people who are out there protesting no wars for oil, right? They're out doing this for decades, no wars for oil. We come up with a solution to the problem, and now they're saying we've got to shut down fracking and go back to being dependent on Middle Eastern oil. It's like, that's just stupid.
Oh, one of my
I don't know how.
One of my YouTube guys just made a point, Pedro. He says that somebody's got to get up there and clean those panels, and that's a minimum wage job.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, so I just put out a video this morning about Boris Johnson and all the idiocy he's doing. He just announced that he says that every home in Britain is going to be powered by wind power by 10 years from now, in the year 2030, right? And so showed an article from Bloomberg from 2 years ago how Britain had gone 9 days without any wind power because the wind wasn't blowing during the summer. And then if you go back to the year 2010, one of the coldest, snowiest winters on record in the United Kingdom. And when they get these Arctic cold snaps like that, there's no wind. The air is dead still. And so the wind generating stations in Scotland were producing zero electricity.
Right.
So here we are, right when it's the hottest in the summer, or right when it's the coldest in the winter. The wind fails, and Boris Johnson wants to make every home in Britain dependent on wind power, which means he's just committing suicide for the country by doing this.
Well, remember Boris was the reason we shut down the American economy, because that guy Neil Ferguson over at Oxford said that 500,000 Brits were going to die, and that from this coronavirus 19, and that 2.2 million Americans were going to die. He came back and revised it later, and nobody picked up on it. But he said that 20,000 Brits were going to die and about 200,000 Americans were going to die. I didn't say that. He said it.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole Corona thing is just completely insane. I mean, it's even nuttier than the climate stuff.
Well, it's real, but it's real, but we don't know how real it is, because everything that these people do, again, follow the money. If you die of natural causes, it's 7,000. If you die from coronavirus, it's 14,000. If you have a ventilator and corona, it's 39,000. That the government pays the hospital. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure out why the government is paying the hospital for these people who are dying. And a buddy of mine, his wife died texting on a freeway. She ran into a bridge abutment, lost control of the car, ran into a bridge abutment, died. Boom. Yeah. And they put on her death certificate, coronavirus. Reason of death, coronavirus.
Yeah. Then they can't infect older people anymore, right? Then they have immunity and they're no longer contagious. So what we're doing in the United States is the exact opposite, dragging it out as long as possible.
Okay.
It makes no sense what we're doing.
It doesn't. Well, Tony, it has been wonderful talking to you today, man. It's been just great. I appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's always good talking with you, Charles.
You too, man. Hey, look, thanks again for bringing us up to speed.
Okay, yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Hey, folks, we're gonna curtail the show, and we'll be back tomorrow, Freedom Friday.
I love the lie and lie the love are hanging on me, push and shove. Possession is the motivation that is hanging up the goddamn nation. Looks like we always end up in a rut. Everybody now trying to make it real compared to what? Come on, baby. Slaughterhouses are killing hoes, twisted children are killing frogs, poor dumb rednecks rolling logs, tired old ladies kissing dogs. I hate the human love of that stinking mud. I can't use it, trying to make it real compared to what? Come on, baby.
Okay. 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 The reality check. All right. 8. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. You gotta make it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. John. Okay. Yeah, could I tape this conversation?